Here it is. When I first started doing research on this video, I thought MrBeast is a pretty cool guy. But now, after having done my research and after having read a few articles about him and the charity work that he does, I think he's maybe not a good guy at all. He's not doing charity because he wants to do charity. He's not helping people out because he wants to help people out. He's helping people out so that way he can make content and make these videos. I feel like a lot of people understand that, but I think we need to acknowledge that and not treat it like he's doing some kind of big, charity great work. Not only is his charity not genuine, but in a lot of ways, it actually hurts the people that he's trying to help. During the course of my research, I came across Magate Wade, who is an African prosperity activist. The central theme in her message is that the best way to help these African countries and communities isn't just by throwing resources at them, but by helping them build cities that can thrive and prosper and support jobs and income for their people. Now, I feel like that's a very obvious statement, but it seems like that's not what a lot of people want to do. So, one of the examples that she talks about in this article is Tom's shoes. Their whole thing was if you buy a pair of shoes, we'll donate a pair of shoes to someone in need in Africa. Editor Z here. So, just a quick note, Tom's Shoes didn't only donate shoes to Africa, they donated to countries all over the world. This is just a specific example talking about the town of Meek in Senegal. Here's a direct quote from the article. They had to cut off staff, meaning hundreds of people lost their jobs, and some of them had to shut down entirely. Why? Because no one can compete with free shoes. So that's just kind of one example of how these companies coming in and just giving free stuff can actually have a really negative impact on the local economy, and now it's costing jobs and income for people that are there. Simply having more shoes does not really solve structural and societal problems that are preventing prosperity. Not only was this not really doing anything helpful, but it was also actually hurting the local economy. It was costing people jobs. This isn't anything new. People have been doing this for decades and decades, trying to help communities, and instead of actually trying to create lasting, meaningful change, they just throw a bunch of resources at the problem and say, there, fixed it. I think the best example of this is how MrBeast basically claims that he solved child labor in West Africa by providing free breakfasts to schools. Now, this seems like a good idea, but when you actually take into account how this would affect the community, it's pretty obvious that it's not going to do very much and could potentially be harmful to the community. Even if providing free breakfast does get more kids to go to school, that isn't really the main problem there. The problem with child labor in West Africa is more a problem about poverty. It's about that these families just simply don't have enough money, and so they have to send off their children to go work in factories. So the way that you're going to solve this isn't through free breakfast. And I think that MrBeast means well, but his team hasn't really considered the practical effects that this is going to have on the communities that they're trying to help. I think another really good example of this is well digging was like this really big thing in the early 2000s. I know it's something that my church when I was a kid talked about a lot. And, we would send money to help dig wells. And the problem there is that it wasn't any kind of program that would affect long lasting change. It was just kind of, hey, let's go there, do this quick fix, and then things are almost immediately back to normal. Or nowadays, there's an estimated 350,000 just broken, abandoned wells in sub Saharan Africa. That, again, all of these charities and all of these different, people or companies or programs or whatever tried to help these communities, but if these wells aren't doing anything, they're not actually helping anything. In one section of her article, Magate Wade talks about how she reached out to MrBeast's team and said, "Hey, what you're doing isn't really going to help that much, but if you want, I can work with your team and we can figure out a project that'll be a little bit more impactful and have more of a long lasting positive effect on the community." And his team basically responded with, "Oh, we already have our Africa project." So they weren't willing to listen to this person just because they had a few so-called experts on the team that somehow they came to decide that this is the best project for them, despite the fact that, again, stuff like this in the past has shown to be very minimally effective in the long run. So there are definitely parts of his charity that are doing actively harmful things that are hurting the communities and the people that they're trying to help. There are some people who have been legitimately helped by MrBeast and his team, but that gets back to the issue of altruism. If his motive is just to make videos and to make content, then is he actually doing good or is he just making content? One of my favorite shows is The Good Place. I'm gonna try not to spoil anything because I think that, the big reveals are a big part of the show and what makes it good. But there's this episode where one of the characters talks about how she's not supposed to be in the good place and is asking for help. And she's trying to increase her good point total so that way she can justify staying in the good place. But of course, everything she does, she's doing out of self-preservation, just to try to stay in the good place. So it doesn't actually count, and she doesn't actually get any points. If you're not doing something for the sake of just doing good, then does it actually count as doing good? Talking about the video where he cured people of blindness, even if his motives were just to make content from it, in the end, 1,000 people were still helped. So, does that count as being good? In other words, does he get the good points from that? That raises one more question. Does true altruism even exist? When I do something good, usually I'll feel good about doing it. So, it's really just kind of a reward cycle in my brain that just is saying, "Oh, do good things, and you'll get the happy chemicals from it." And so if I'm doing good things just so that way I feel good, I'm not doing it just for the sake of doing good or just out of the kindness of my heart. I'm doing it because it makes me feel good to do good. So if true altruism doesn't exist, it's if it's impossible to do something just for the sake of doing good, then who knows? I don't think anyone's actually really tracking those point totals anyway, and I feel like we've gotten a little bit off topic here. Back to actually talking about MrBeast. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of the allegations. Now, there have been a few different allegations at MrBeast over the years. There was some stuff about sexual misconduct. There was some stuff about him doing kind of a pump and dump crypto scam, which, I mean, honestly, a lot of YouTubers are doing that kind of shit these days, but just because other people are doing it too doesn't mean that it's any less good. And I also saw something where there were allegations of him just creating a really toxic work environment within his company. Now, I don't know for sure which ones of those are proven and which ones are just baseless allegations, but either way, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if at least, a few of these things that people have said about him are true. So, when trying to answer the question, is MrBeast a good person? I think that there's a lot to consider. His philanthropy is actually harming people. His whole motivation there was just to make content about it and just to, kind of get some fame points from it. And when we consider the allegations, I think that it's pretty clear that MrBeast is not a good person because the 1,000 people that he's cured of blindness doesn't make up for the thousands of people that he's hurt from bad company work environment or the people that he's hurt from doing these charity events that are not actually helping people and actually making things worse for people. So ultimately, no, I don't think he's a good person. I think he's more interested in fame and clout than he is in actually helping people. And even in his, attempts to actually help people, he's doing things that are harmful to people. So, no, I don't think he's a good person. And I think at this point, he's kind of willfully choosing to do these bad things, you know? Or at the very least, he is complacent in his company's choices. If he would actually critically analyze the things that he's doing and listen to real experts, he would realize, why these things are so harmful. Again, even when Magate Wade reached out to his team and was like, hey, I'll help you come up with a plan that's actually going to be more helpful for people, his company was like, no, we've already got our Africa project. So I don't know. Ultimately, it just seems like he's not actually interested in helping. Moral of the story, I don't think MrBeast is a good guy, and I think that he's probably actively hurting more people than he's helping. If you liked this video and thought it was interesting, hit that like and subscribe button. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday, so make sure that you hit the bell icon as well to get notified when those come out. Okay, bye.